Okay, so I'm going to be talking about verification checklists. So Joe's told you how you find this amazing content, but how do you check that it's true so you can run it? And the reason I use the word checklist is because actually, as an industry, we don't have a checklist that we can all say, yes, it's had 2 pairs of eyes, or yes, it has to reach this level before we run it. Instead, this is our checklist. We all say, this cannot be independently verified, which is actually not very helpful to the audience. We've done research with the audience, and they say, I don't really know what that means. And actually, it's a lie, because a lot of newsrooms are doing a lot of verification. It's just it hasn't reached to a level where the lawyers say, yes, we can hold our hands up and say it. But this example, which you probably saw, was a Twitter video that was uploaded by somebody called Anna Orenheim. It got over 26,000 retweets. It got used everywhere. It was people running away from the airport. Now, in this situation, we could verify that this was the right date and it was the right location, but it was not the right source. If you're not aware of this story, 6 hours later, she tweeted, just FYI, this is not my video. I'm not in Brussels, which any journalist who'd done 2 minutes of searching would have worked out that she wasn't in Brussels. It was shared with me on WhatsApp. I don't have a name for credit, but please don't use mine. This got 10 retweets. So in this situation, this is still, I did a look yesterday, still lots of major news organizations running that video with Anna Orenheim as the credit, which is incorrect. So the issue here is we did know the date and location was correct. You'd be idiots to not run the footage while you're waiting to find out who the source is. But I think there's something about transparency around what we know and what we don't know. Here's one of my, this is from the MH17 situation. There's a lovely, at the time, he was a 15-year-old boy. He used to sit at Schiphol Airport and take photos of all the planes that took off. He realized that actually this image that he'd taken was of MH17. So he tweeted out this image with, I don't know if you can see, but a Comic Sans font of his username because he knew that nobody would credit him. Actually, a certain news organization scrubbed that out because it was so ugly. But anyway, in this situation, we can verify the source, we can verify the date. We can never independently verify the location because all we've got to go on is blue sky and a plane. So there are certain situations where we just can't independently verify that, but yet we know the source and the date. It's a year anniversary of Nepal. Often with natural disasters, you can verify the source, you can verify the location, you can use Google satellite image to say where that is, but often you'll find during days where there's kind of 5 or 6 days of footage coming out, it's very hard to verify the date specifically. Because remember, the difficulty with the date is it's not the upload date, it's the date that it was captured. So again, all those 4 examples, we knew certain elements, but we didn't know others. And I think just by saying this cannot be independently verified, we're doing a disservice to the audience in terms of what we do know. So the main thing I want to say when we talk about verification is a process. So people say, have you verified that? It's very rare that you can stick a big green tick and say, yes, it's been verified. Often you're going to say, I'm in a process, and this is what I know, and this is what I don't know. So in this presentation, I'm just going to go through the 5 checks that you should be making. Firstly, provenance. Are you looking at the original piece of content? That example with Anna Orenheim is an example that we're seeing more and more of footage circulating via WhatsApp and other chat apps. And then finally, it will emerge on Twitter or YouTube, but it's almost never the person who originally created that content. WhatsApp makes it very difficult. Obviously, encryption is wonderful, but actually it's making it even harder to do any kind of verification on the content emerging from WhatsApp. Secondly, source, who captured the content? Not the person who uploaded the content, but the person who actually pressed click on the camera. Thirdly, when was the content captured? Again, you can get good upload data for things like YouTube and Instagram, but actually you want to know when was that footage captured? What was the time and date stamp? And location, where was the content captured? Again, there's good GPS tools around things like Twitter, but actually you want to be able to independently say, using satellite imagery, this is where the person was standing, and I can double check with them. And finally, motivation, which is increasingly becoming important as everybody can essentially be holding a camera. I used to work for UNHCR. We would train field workers to actually create eyewitness media, essentially. You've got citizen journalists who are out there deliberately to capture a story, but you've also got just accidental eyewitnesses who just happen to be there. That's a big part of this, particularly in terms of labeling and being transparent with the audience about who it was that captured it and why they captured it. So firstly, are you looking at the original piece of content? The most simple but most important verification tool is Google reverse image search, because scraping is a big issue when it comes to eyewitness media. We increasingly have things emerge on Vine. They get dragged down from Vine and re-uploaded to YouTube. You get stuff on Periscope that's getting scraped and then repackaged into a video. So scrapes are one of the most important problems and actually one of the most difficult problems to solve, but it's all about provenance. So here's an example of Google reverse image search and how quickly you can use it to check, is this image of rubble around Nepal, is this actually something I can use? So this is from Syria. In less than 20 seconds, we can see that the image was actually taken in Mali in 2012. You can right-click, you can have a Chrome extension for reverse image search, or you can go to Google Images yourself, and when it comes up, you get the little camera icon, and you simply click on the camera icon and either paste the URL, or you can upload the image yourself if you saved it. And here, ping, 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 all these examples are from 2012. So at that point, you can just say stop. We just know that this is not from today in Syria. This is a kind of a dream verification moment when you know you can't go any further. If it comes back with 0, this has never appeared on the web before, that doesn't mean, amazing, we can use it. It means, oh, I've got to carry on doing more checks. But Google reverse image search does not exist for, oh, sorry, before I move on, Craig introduced me to me the other day, called RevEye. It's a Chrome extension. You can right-click, and it will allow you to do a Google reverse image search, but also TinEye. TinEye is another reverse image search engine. Sidral, Yandex, Badu. Yandex is very interesting. If you're doing any work in terms of Russia and Turkey, Yandex is a search engine that gives you more information. And even Street View, there isn't Street View for Google Street View, but there is for Yandex if anything happens in Istanbul. So understanding these different search engines is another really important part of the work that we're doing. But as I was saying, video doesn't have a reverse image search functionality, but Amnesty built this tool called YouTube Data Viewer. And what it allows you to do is to take a YouTube video, and you simply copy the URL into the data viewer, and it gives you a whole load of information on the left-hand side. But if you focus on the right-hand side, at the top, it gives you the unique identifier of the video, and it pulls out thumbnails. So all it's doing is finding thumbnails from the video and then allowing you to do a reverse image search on those thumbnails. So in this example, here's the unique identifier I was talking about, which I'll come back to in a second. By putting in that thumbnail, it pulls out all of these other examples. So you very quickly say, well, this is a scrape. There's other stuff online. Let's not use it. So although we haven't had the answer in terms of video reverse image search, this is the closest that we can get. And returning again to unique identifiers, you have unique identifiers on YouTube videos and Instagram photos or videos. If you put that into Google, it allows you to track where else that has appeared on the web. So here, by putting that unique identifier in, it shows me other examples of where this video has appeared on the web. So it's just giving me more clues, allows me to go down the rabbit hole and say, yep, this is not something I should touch, with a barge pole, as we would say in my country. Here's an example from Instagram of the attacks on the beach in Tunisia. Again, here is the unique identifier for Instagram. It's the collection of letters and numbers in the middle of the URL. Again, you put that into Google, you get all the places that Instagram image has appeared previously. So you're getting more information that you can use. I wish there was a magic machine that you could feed in a piece of content and it would tell you, yes, this is the original. What you really want to do is speak to the source, get them on the phone and say, please, can you send me the original image? Without that, it's very difficult to know that you're actually looking at the original. Here's some monkeys on a roof. If I was trying to work out whether these monkeys were real, one simple and free tool is it true? So none of these tools that we're showing you, they're all free, which means none of them are perfect. But when you put them all together, they give you some pretty strong foundations to do your work. Is it true was created by some people who previously worked at Photoshop. What it's doing is running 6 different forensic tests on your image. Now, this is just for images. Remember, for any social network, they rip out all the metadata on your photos and videos. It makes it too heavy. They don't want you to have the metadata, which makes it very difficult for verification. If you have the original photo and the person has sent you their monkey roof photo, you can then put it through, is it true, and it will run those different tests. The reason I show you this is it's pretty sensitive. So even the fact that it was emailed to me, I downloaded it and then uploaded it to Is It True, it says here, our forensic test suggests the file has been resaved since initial capture. So it's looking at issues like compression. It's looking at issues, has it been resaved? Again, it's not perfect, but if you're working on a breaking news desk and you get an image in, it's a good first step. Secondly, source. Who captured the content? So there's a number of different kind of aggregator websites out there. PQ is one, Spokeo is another. I say this publicly. In America, people give away a lot of data, so it's much easier to search for people in the US than it is anywhere else. So this is the San Bernardino shooter. You can find the address. If you have the pro version, it tells you things like the price of their house, telephone numbers, all sorts of things. So if you have a breaking news situation in America, you're on much better ground than elsewhere in the world. Pipl is better internationally, but still it is only as good as how much information somebody has put out there. So you want somebody with a large digital footprint, and when you have that, you're in a better place. Remember, you always want a unique identifier. So rather than searching on somebody's name, you're always better to search somebody's email address or telephone number or username in Google. The more unique the information is, the better your results will be. This is Anna Orenheim, who keeps coming back in this presentation. It would have taken one search of her name to work out that she wasn't in Brussels. So there really was no excuse for not working that out more quickly. Another website is follow.me, which allows you to look at somebody's Twitter account, and it'll tell you how long they've been on Twitter. So this is lovely Joe Galvin. He joined Sunday, May 11th at 2:25, 2008, early adopter. So I think he's probably not a bot. But also, I like Follow Me because it tells you when people generally tweet. So I like this because it shows that Joe is a good boy and likes to get 7 hours sleep every night, and he doesn't often tweet in the middle of the night. So this gives me more of a sense that he's a human and he's a normal person. Another freakishly upsetting tool is graph.tips, which allows you to search somebody's Facebook graph. Essentially, everybody has their own username. So here, I would put in somebody's username. So if you look at anybody's profile page, it would say facebook.com/Silverman Craig, and that's Craig's unique username. I put that in, and it brings up his personal Facebook ID. And once I have that, I can look at the posts that the person has commented on, which photos does this person like, which photos have they been tagged in. Now, bear in mind this is only public stuff, but it's actually amazing how much stuff, when people are commenting on public pages, how much stuff they have out there. Again, if you're a journalist, you might want to go and check all your own privacy settings, but when you're trying to do verification, it becomes very helpful. So this is just a collection of some photos that Craig is tagged in, including one with a horse. There were worse ones, but I was being a good friend. But again, always search yourself/ex-boyfriends, just to see if there's anything out there. And finally, if you have a website, look up the domain name registration information. So the best one is whois.icann.org. And because this is me, and I don't want to embarrass myself, I have paid the extra $20 for privacy, which smart internet users do. There are people out there who haven't done that. And if they hadn't, you would have got my email address, my telephone number, my actual address, and my fax number. Little secret tip, often people like me will buy clairewardle.com, but I might also buy clairewardle.co.uk, clairewardle.net, clairewardle.biz, because there's a beauty queen in Seattle, and I do not want her to have my domain name. I'm not going to pay the extra $20 for those other domains because I haven't got anything on them. However, you could potentially go in and find my secret information. So that's a top tip. Domain names can be really useful for finding information about people. Date. When was the content captured? So this is an old example, but still a really important one. And actually, Malachi Brown, who has just joined your ranks, he was the person who found this back in 2013 when there was the chemical weapons attacks in Ghouta in Syria. Those chemical weapons attacks happened at 2 a.m. in the morning. Actually, every YouTube video is date stamped with Pacific Standard Time. So 2 a.m. in the morning in Syria was the previous day in California, which allowed Putin to say, no, this is all false content because the date stamp is wrong. Actually, it was because the date stamp was showing California time, not Syria time. And it's important to know that every social network has a different date stamp protocol, which is a massive pain. Twitter's date stamp protocol is the internal Twitter settings that you've set up. So recently I realized I was out of sync because my settings were still for London. I hadn't moved them to New York. Facebook's timestamp is based on your internal clock. So when you fly and it says, no, move your map, it depends on what time your computer thinks it is. And then YouTube and Instagram are both Pacific Standard Time. So it's important to know that for all the different social networks. One day, maybe they'll all align and become friends, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Another great site is Wolfram Alpha, which is a knowledge engine, and it allows you to ask what the weather was at a particular time. It's basically cross-referencing weather forecasts that are out there. So if we go back to the MH17 example, I can say to Wolfram Alpha, what was the weather in Amsterdam on July 17th, 2014? And it actually says here, rain, fog, overcast, cloudy, partly cloudy, few clouds, clear. It's a very European forecast, 4 seasons in one day. But actually, if I look further, the top chart says cloud cover. MH17 took off at 11:31 local time. And if I get my lovely arrow to work, hello, lovely arrow. Could we kick something? Nicely, lovely. So it took off at the lowest point of cloud cover. So you're thinking, well, okay, maybe that gives me more information. Again, none of this is absolute, but you're putting all these clues together on your investigation board. Potentially kick something else? Thanks. So Exif Data. So Exif Data is the metadata that sits around an image. We don't have Exif Data for video yet. We just have it for images. Now, Flickr keeps Exif Data unless the person says no. Unfortunately, not many people use Flickr now in breaking news situations, which is a shame. But this is from the Boston Marathon, and you can see at the top it says taken on April 15th, actually uploads to Flickr on April 16th. So it shows the difference between the time it was taken and the upload time. It also tells me that the camera was a Canon digital something. So the camera becomes really important, actually, because when you get the person on the phone, you can say, what camera did you take it on? Oh, it was an iPhone. Well, what type of iPhone? iPhone 5? No, it was an iPhone 6. So that knowing what kind of camera somebody was taking it on becomes important when you're actually talking to the source. Location, where was the content captured? Now, this is hat tip Andy Carvin. Here's an example that he found that was geotagged. So on Twitter, when you see the little peg, that means that either the computer or the phone had location switched on. Only a very small percentage, estimates between 1.5 and 3% of content on the social web has actual GPS located content. And this is an example of one where we can say this was tweeted from Yemen on the 6th of September 2015, and here's the tweet. The problem is this photo is not geolocated. This photo is a road to Basra. It's a long time out of date. Often people look at that and be like, oh, that looks like Yemen. And increasingly with tools like Data Miner where content just surfaces and people say, well, I've put this kind of boundary around it and anything within this boundary has been geo-targeted. Yes, this tweet is geolocated, but the content isn't. So that's something really important to bear in mind. This is a photo of my front room that I took and posted to Instagram, and Instagram said, oh, are you in Morningside Heights? I said, no, I'm in Yemen. And so it published it saying that I was in Yemen. Be very wary with Facebook and Instagram because people can override where they say that they are. So this is something really to bear in mind on both those sites. Even on the map, I used to really believe that the map on the app was only geolocated content, but I did some experiments with my students last week, and they're like, oh, Claire, I've just uploaded a picture of Kobe Bryant, and it suggested Lakers, and it's posted it to LA, but we're sitting at Columbia University. And I was like, So we need to be very, very wary of Instagram and talk to them about how they're geotagging their content. And this is an example, if you don't know, it's a good one, so we'll say it again. John McAfee, on the run, nobody knew where he was. Vice managed to get an interview with him, and whilst interviewing him said, can we take a photo with you? And he's like, yeah, sure, fine, not a problem. So it was published, not realizing that by publishing it, the Exif data was still viewable. So his phone was an Apple iPhone 4S back in the days when we weren't quite as savvy about geolocation. And so the geolocation of that picture was visible, allowing everybody back at home to work out that John McAfee was in Guatemala. In fact, he was actually right next to that swimming pool. So Exif data is incredibly useful when it comes to geolocation. But if you don't have Exif data, you really want to be doing this independent verification using other imagery that's out there, both Google satellite imagery or Street View. Here's an example of a train. It says iDomini. I'm going to trust Instagram on this level to start the search. Even though all I can see is some train tracks and a police officer and some tents, actually it is possible in a pretty short space of time to find that exact location. So here's the lat long. Oh, sorry. Here's the lat long. And this is from 2011 on Street View. And if you cross-reference the clues, from the picture you can see the train tracks, and you can see that they actually part here. There's not many moments on that particular track through iDomini where the train tracks do that. You've got two of those poles there, and you might not be able to see there's a little grey box, which tallies with the grey box there. You've got the little siding there, which is coming up with grass just there. So at this point, everything there says that's exactly where that picture was taken. So for most pictures or videos, there are enough clues, even though it doesn't look like it, to be able to independently geolocate where something was. And you really want to put yourself where the uploader was standing in order to verify. So finally, why was the content captured? So there are a number of different examples here of people who are activists, who are just happen to be eyewitnesses, or reporters themselves. You might have seen that example of when the boy was nearly hit with a baseball bat. And lots of journalists thought, oh, this is just eyewitness media because it was on Twitter. He was actually a photojournalist with a Pittsburgh newspaper and got very angry that everybody's like, oh, we don't need to credit him because he's just an eyewitness. He's like, no, I'm a journalist. And here's an example from UNHCR where there was a snowstorm last January. No professional photographers could get up there, and this was actually taken by a refugee. And UNHCR put this up on their Flickr page, and right down at the bottom it said, photo by Hani, a Syrian refugee in Lebanon. That in itself is part of the story, and I think we often forget who's actually holding the camera in the way that we would think about sources. We forget about it when we're talking about eyewitnesses. So finally, the verification process again, provenance, source, date, location, and motivation. Remembering all the time, it's not just about the upload date or time, it's about when was it actually captured, who actually captured it. Which is why when you do the outreach that Joe was talking about, never say, can we use your picture? Say, did you take this picture? Because it's often the case that somebody's like, oh no, it was my mate Barry, he took it, but I just put it on my Twitter account. It's amazing how often it isn't actually the person who uploaded it. So in front of you, we have our verification guides, which are also available on First Draft News for photos and videos. And although it seems complicated, the idea behind this is, on those 5 checks, you should be thinking through, what do we absolutely know with certainty? What are we much less sure about? And particularly give it to editors, because often editors who are making the final call don't necessarily know as much about this. Oh, any questions?